Hi friends, it's Becky, and today I want to make two full sets of jewelry with you. And to do that, I'm going to be using beads and findings from both the Bargain Bead Box February 2025 box, that's the Floral Fantasy box, and the first companion bundle. They did do a second companion bundle. I did not purchase it, and I'm hopeful that some of my friends were able to get that. But if you'd like to see unboxings for both of these boxes to see what else came in it, I'll put those links in the description below so you can see those. Also put links to Bargain Bead Box, which is one of the most economical value for money bead boxes that's available. It's a monthly bead subscription that's always very beautifully curated. They have a sister store called Bargain Bead Box Bargains, where you can find really high quality beads like check glass, gemstones, etc. at really decent prices. And as a subscriber to the Bargain Bead Box, you also get a 30% off coupon every month that you can use at their sister store. So often they'll take items from that sister store and make a bundle that you can purchase as an optional add-on, you know, when they announce it, to go with your Bargain Bead Box subscription. And so that's what these beads came from. These ones came in my Bargain Bead Box. So one of the things that I decided to do is sometimes when I do this style of video where I make two sets of jewelry using the Bargain Bead Box and the companion, is I'll keep them separate so that I'll have all items from the companion bundle for one project and all items from the Bargain Bead Box as my other project. But for this one, I'm actually going to do a little bit of swapping. So I'm using the beads and the findings from the companion bundle for this set, but I'm going to use the focal bead from the Bargain Bead Box, the subscription box, in that set. And then for my Bargain Bead Box set, I'm going to be using beads and focals for that, but I grabbed some of these daisy spacers that came in my companion bundle, and I'm going to be using some of that. So there is a little bit of intertwining that's going to be going on with this. And because it's February, and I challenged myself to make at least two full sets of jewelry each week for the month of February. And you know what? I think I'm going to count like the full month, because there was one week where I only got one full set done, and then another week, this week, I'm going to have finished 3 of them. So we're going to try and, you know, make sure it just evens out the average of at least 2 full sets each week. The average of that. So this will contribute to that. I think I've been doing okay on that, but it has been a lot of fun. One of the things that this challenge does is it challenges me to make rings with some craft wire, or doing bead weaving or something else like that that I can use to make a ring with. And so for this full set, we're going to be making necklace, bracelet, earrings, and a ring for each of these. So that's how we're going to go, because one of the things I like to do when I do these videos also is do one jewelry set that uses the craft wire to make beaded chains like these, and then another one I will do stringing on some beading wire. So I've got my 20 gauge craft wire and my medium size dark blue lapis bead stringing wire. So those are some things that I will be using, some additional supplies. I also have some 2x2 crimp tubes that I'll be using when I do my bead stringing, and we'll be doing that. I've got some other tools that I like to use when I am making these jewelry. I've got my flush cutters. This will cut both the beading wire and the craft wire. I've got some chain nose pliers and some round nose pliers, because we'll be making some links, so we're going to do a little bit of making some loops when we do that. And when I do my bead stringing, I like to crimp with my magical crimper, so I'm going to be using those. One more additional thing that I'll be adding to at least one of the projects are some ball head pins. And these came in my bead stash. I've got some ear wires for the earrings, and I've got some little 5mm jump rings in stainless steel color that we'll be using. I think that covers all of my equipment, everything here, I'm going to move aside my companion bundle beads, and let's do the stringing project first, and we'll go biggest, largest to smallest for our order that we create these in, and we'll do a the necklace, the bracelet, the earrings, and then the ring. Or maybe I can do both necklaces and then do both bracelets, and then both earrings. And then, you know what, let's do it that way. Let's do both necklaces first, and then both bracelets first, and then both earrings first, and then both rings first. I'll put timestamps for each of these in the description below. It's just a little clock string of numbers with separated by a semicolon. If you click that number, it'll take you right to that part of the video. So we'll put some of those in the description so you can jump ahead. Like if you want to skip past the necklace for project number 1 and just go to project number 2, necklace, you'd click the numbers for that. Or if you just wanted to go to earrings, you'd click the number for earrings. So that's or at least earrings number 1. So we're going to call this number 1, and that's the one with the Bargain Bead Box items. And I'm going to pull out some wire and we will start stringing. Now this focal, it came with a bail already on it. I pulled the bail off when I was unboxing because I decided that I probably was going to use it without that bail. But it was a silvery bail that had some flowers on it. It was very pretty, so you could probably do this without removing the bail if you wanted to. But I think I'm going to like having my beads right next to this on the bead strand. Alright, and I've also pulled out some of these faceted agate beads that were in the bead box because they are beautiful, and they're going to go in between the big chunks of quartz that we've got here. Or what was that? It feels quartzy. Like electroplated or something. But yeah, so it's going to go in between these sections. We're going to have a few of these round beads to make it nice and easy. So I'm just going to put a spacer, my focal, and a spacer. I'm going to work from the middle out, so I'm going to string just one side of this first. Make sure I've got the right length, and then string the other side. So I'm just going to be picking up 3 of these. 1, 2, 3. So they'll be like that. Put this spacer on. And then string on one of these big chunky nugget beads. Like that. Then another spacer. And 3 more of these beads. I do have more than of these beads than I have on my mat, but I think this is enough to do both sides of the necklace the way that I'm planning it. So this is going to be more of a chunky kind of a necklace because it's going to have all of these nugget chunks on it too. And this is going to work up really fast because we are using these chunky beads. I probably am not going to need to use all of these beads that I already laid out. I tried to do like sort of even sizes on each side for a little symmetry. They won't be completely even though. I was just trying to get the sizes approximate to each other for those beads, you know, larger, smaller, smaller, larger, larger, smaller, that sort of thing. All right, just see where I'm at. Okay, so I think I might actually, yes, be using all of those. That'll be fun. Now, one other thing that I am using are these leaf closures. There was another leaf closure, I think, yeah, in the Bargain Bead Box as well. That was this one, but I wanted to use that in a different kind of necklace. So I'm using these ones from the companion bundle, because I have a couple of them. Use that on the bracelet. And that will help actually tie all of these together a little bit more too. Forgot to pull those out at the beginning. Let me put those over here. That one for the bracelet. All right. So now, in order to close this on this end, I'm going to use my crimps. And I'm just going to put one extra bead on here just for fun. So now there's 4 instead of 3. All right, I'm going to put on one of my crimps. One end of the clasp. Bend my wire back through. And now that I've got that wire through, use my crimpers. Right. In order to crimp with the magical crimper, you're going to find that little center divot. You'll make sure that your crimp is centered in that divot. I'm not pressing down yet. I'm making sure it's centered. And now I'm going to give it a little smush. And it just smushes down the corners of that crimp. And then when you turn it on the side, see it's a square and now it's more of a dash. About 90 degrees, again make sure it's centered and give it another smush. See how it's kind of smushed? Do the same thing, but at another angle, you know, like maybe 20 degrees, 80 degrees. Maybe we're going to go all the way around to like 190 degrees. I don't know. But keep going around and do little smushes, and as you do so, it smooths down the edges of the crimp. Okay, so now that I've got one end crimped, I'm just going to scooch my beads along up to the end there, and then give myself a little bit more than an equal length of wire from that point over here for the other side, because I want to have enough room and enough wire to be able to crimp with afterwards. And then I'm just going to go up this second side the same way I did the first side. And I've got these guys all laid out, so I don't have to go dig through my beads as I'm doing this. I can just string some beads. Whoop. It's not as big, but that's okay. Because the next one is big enough. Put on 2 spacers in a row. Darn it. Okay. That actually gave me a chance to turn my little nugget around, and I think I like it better that way. I almost did it again. Do you guys ever get distracted by your own thoughts when you're beading? Where, you know, you get carried away somewhere in your brain. Sometimes that happens to me too. But, you know, if you want to avoid mistakes, you should probably be present when you're doing things like this. 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah. That's why. Last one. Right, let's get this one crimped. Get our crimp on. Put our other side of closure through. And on this side, I want to tighten up my loop a little bit. Make sure that there's still some movement. And see how it's right next to that bead? I want to stick my fingernail in there a little bit and just wiggle it away from the edge so that when I put my crimp pliers around it, I'm able to actually center that crimp by having like that teeniest, tiniest of spaces between the bead and the crimp. Alright, so there we have the necklace from my Bargain Bead Box. My chunky gemstone guy. And now let's make a chain, a beaded chain with beads from the companion bundle. Now, I told you I brought this bead over from the Bargain Bead Box, and I'm going to be using these other beads in order to make the beaded chain for this focal, the beaded chain for the bracelet that I'll be making, and let me show you how I'm making the chain. Now let's make a focal first. It's going to be like a focal bar. So I'm going to want enough wire for the bar, some wraps, and a couple of loops. So that should be enough. So about 4 times as long as the length of that, because these aren't giant beads that are going to be next to it, but they don't take up zero space either. Alright. I'm going to start at one end with a loop before I put anything on this bar. I was just warming it up with my fingers, which also helps straighten it out before using. That's all I was doing here. Now I'm going to need my wire working tools, my round nose pliers and my chain nose pliers. And about 2 inches from the end, I'm going to grasp it in my chain nose or my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a sort of mid-sized loop, not the tiniest loop, a mid-sized loop. So I'm down about 1/3 of the way from the pointy tip of my barrel towards the handles. I'm just going to bend this back first so that I can make a little almost right angle right there on my wire, and then while it's still in the same place it was before, I'm going to push the end of this wire over the top so that it's pointing back together like that. I'm going to let go on my pliers but not move them, except to rotate that up to the top, and then just gently push that over there so that it crosses over the wire like a guy wearing a scarf, and it's a nice little centered loop there, right? And then you can hold onto your loop. I like to hold onto it there, and then either with a second set of pliers or with your fingers like I'm doing here, take that scarf end and wrap it around the neck or the core of this wire here. You can wrap it a few times if you want to. Once you've got a nice little wrap on there, and I just gave this loop a little squish in my pliers like that, and it helps work harden the loop itself so it's not likely to deform. Alright, so now I've got my flush cutters, and I'm going to just grab the wire and cut it as close as possible with the flush end for my loop. And now I can put my beads on. So I'm going to start with this rondelle, a spacer, my large ceramic bead, or is it resin? I can't remember if it was resin or not. Then I've got another spacer and a rondelle. And now I need to make another loop. So here we go. This loop on the other side. I'm going to be bending away from me, just like I did around with the round nose pliers. Only I'm bending over the top of my chain nose pliers back that way. I'm going to take my round nose pliers, put it right on top of that bend. And I'm holding my wire in about the same part of the barrel as I was before, so that the loops would be accurate. Brought that around to the front. You've got to cross over the bead as well. And once you've got this end, you can hold on to it. And wrap, just like you did the first side. And that's how you make a wrapped loop link. And so this is just a nice long link as the focal for this necklace. So the rest of it, I've already pre-done one of them. The rest of it is going to be making these links and then hooking them together with some jump rings. So for my links, one of these links is going to be using these Capri Blue rondelles and the Drooks that came in my companion bundle. like this. And also these daisy spacers to go between them. That is also what these links do. And then the second link uses this bead. Now this bead did not come in either companion bundle or Bargain Bead Box, but I got it in my order. It was just an extra purchase that I had made just to buy these little crystally drooks that have this AB finish on it. I thought they looked really pretty. And they really do, and I think they add a lot to it just to pop them between these bead caps that did come in the Bargain Bead Box. I think it helps lend towards the, you know, the pool surface of this bead to have some beads that are a little bit water droppy. So those are the two links that I am doing. Let me demonstrate them. And they are also, by the way, these links are wrapped loop links. So I'm going to be bending the wire a little bit more quickly. I'm not going to stop and explain the whole thing that I'm doing like I did on this first link. Just because then it gets really, really repetitive. Alright, and so let's get these links. I like to work off the spool when I'm making links like this. And I like to pre-string my beads on here so that when I measure my wire for my second loop, I'm not overestimating how much wire I need, because I had a ton of wire left over after overestimating how much wire I'd need for this. And I just don't like wasting that much wire. Alright, so I'm going to make a loop the same way I did the first time. And you can see how it goes a little bit more quickly if you can pick up your tool instead of having it be on the other side of the desk from you. Anyway, it goes a little bit more quickly when you're not, you know, stopping between each part of it. But this is why I like to pre-string these beads, is so that I can measure how much wire I need to cut off for that link. And I usually measure 3 fingers down and then cut the wire. And then I'm just going to leave that bend there and come back to it in a minute, because I'm going to start my second link. This is one of the things that I do when I'm spending time making chain. And it's something that I like to do with some background stuff going on. Like if I'm watching a show, I can sit with my hands being busy making chain by doing it like this. That's why some of it was already done. It's because I was spending time doing that while I was making that chain. But it can get sort of zen because you're doing some repetitive motions and that sort of thing. And you can make multiple chains or multiple links at the same time like that. And then after I'd made that bend, just like I did with this one, I'm coming back around with the pliers to make a wrapped loop. Close that up as I wrap it around. There we go. So that's one link, and then let's make the second link. Alright, and then there we go. That link doesn't look right. I'm going to do this again. Sorry, guys. In fact, you know what? I'm going to make all these links, and I'll be right back to you once the links are finished, and we can pick up again and put them all together. All right, so we have our focal. We have 3 of each of these 2 links that I was showing you, and it's 3 per side. I'm using the exact same beads for the bracelet that I am here. In fact, it's almost identical. One of these will be a bracelet and one of these will be the other side of this necklace. So per side or per bracelet, you'll need 3 of each of these. So let's get our jump rings. I've grabbed the clasp, I've grabbed my links, and let's put this together. Now you will want to have another set of pliers handy, or something that you can grasp onto the edge of your jump ring when you're going to open that. Often the little jump ring rings might be included with them when you purchase them. Sometimes that happens. Anyway, I'm just going to twist that open, and I'm going to work from the back to the front of this necklace, except I'll put the clasps on after I've put the whole thing together. And then we just swing that closed and make sure that those ends are together. All right, here we go. Next one. Why is that not twisting apart? It looks like I forgot to snip off some of my excess wire from when I was making that link on that link right there. So I'm just going to grab my flesh cutters and do that. Man, who's in charge of the quality control on this channel? Just kidding. Okay. I was just trying to find where the split was. Sometimes if there are like really good jump rings, you can't tell where the split is, and makes it a little more difficult. Like if the cut is very, very clean and the wire. There we go. Got my ends together. Going to attach this end of my necklace to the focal. Again, just using jump rings for all of it. And then I'll get this second end. This was one of the chains that I already pre-did before I started recording. There you go. And now I want to attach my closures. Got my ring on there. And I usually like to have more than one jump ring on the end that I do the toggle part of a toggle clasp. So I'm going to attach jump ring first to the end there, and then I'll use that jump ring to attach the toggle bar to the this jump ring. And that's just so that it has more like articulation. It's easier to move around because that's will help make it easier when you go to do a closure. I need to open that a little bit wider. There we go. Let's see, there we go, more articulation. Go. That is our necklace with beads from the companion bundle, plus a focal from the first one. So I've got both of the necklaces finished at this point. So I'm going to move them both out of the way, and let's get started on bracelets. All right, so for the first bracelet, it's almost done, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this all put together. It's basically that same chain that we saw me make for the necklace. I'm exactly the same order and everything. I'm not changing up the order. I'm just going to add a clasp to the ends of this so that it can be closed up around a wrist. Like that. And I'm going to be joining it exactly the same way that I did around the necklace, opening and closing some jump rings. And then 2 jump rings on the other end. Like I said, I like to have 2 for my toggle bars. Alright, and so that's the bracelet that will go with that necklace. Now let's get four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Alright. 12. Okay, perfect. Where's a bigger, longer, chunkier one? Oh no, let's do a whole section of these right there in the middle, and maybe a single one on the sides. Like that. Okay, yeah, I think that's how I want a bracelet to go. Okay. That's gonna work. Let's get some beading wire out here, and I'm gonna just start stringing. I'm gonna see if we can get this bracelet built. 1, 2, 3. Right, there we go. Yep. The big difference between the necklace and this is that one of these sections, instead of a single section, a single one of these chunkers, it's going to be right there at the top of that bracelet. And I think that that is, if I check it and I need to make this longer, I think that's where I'll make it longer from, is that center part, because I can just add more chip beads until it is the right size. So I'm just stringing on the rest of these so we can do a fit check. All right, here we go. I don't know how comfortable that's going to be. I might switch it out for something else if I have to make this longer. Alright, so that is not even 5.5. Okay. So I am going to definitely need more space right there in the center focal part. So I might swap this out for maybe a couple of things that are longer. Because it's so thin, and also it's got jaggedy edges, so I don't know if I want to have that right next to the skin. I say that and then I put on more jaggedy edge guys. That's okay. I've got the wrong hole. There we go. Because that can lay flat-ish. And maybe one more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if that will be long enough. That is a big chunky guy. Alright, I do like that balance though. I just think I need more beads along the back side of it. Just a couple more. I am out of this bead, so let's see what we can add to it. No, not that. A couple of these. I think I am out of spacers too, except for the ones that I'm going to be using in an earring. Speaking of earrings, I can't use that one. Okay, I think that'll probably be good. Oh, that's already a little bit too much. Let's do one more. There you go. That'll work. And I'm going to need to crimp this on. I'm actually just going to crimp a loop, and then I will use the jump rings to attach my clasp to the loop. I've just bent my wire back on itself. And then I'm crimping it exactly the same way I did for the necklace. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. We'll just make a loop with our beading wire, and then I'll use a jump ring to connect the clasp. This is where I'm just using my fingernail to give myself a little bit of space. Also bend this bracelet so it's not too tight when I'm done. And I can crimp this. There's our 3 jump rings. There we go. Now you can use the end of your things sort of like pliers. Your magical cripper. And sometimes I will just, instead of finding a second set of pliers, just like I am now, I'll use that to hold the other end of a jump ring when I am doing it. So I've got my jump ring on there. Let's do our second one. That jump ring is very off. Let's use a better one. Because I like to use 2. Put a loop on here. There you go. There's our bracelets. So the bracelets didn't take as long because we were mostly doing the same thing as the necklaces, using links that we made for the necklaces, stringing in basically almost the same order as we did on those necklaces. And there we go, we've got another bracelet. All right, let's move on to earrings. I'm basically going to use the rest of this up. And we're going to do more crimping. Let's use some wire to do a couple of loops. All right. I'm going to get started with putting 3 of these rondelles on. They're not exactly the same blue, but we ran out of those, so we are going to use these. And then I'm going to put on 1 of these. We've got 1 rondelle, and then the second one, there's only going to be 2 on each of these loops. But we do have several of these rondelles on. And then I'm just going to make a loop. By putting both ends of my beading wire through a crimp. And I can adjust the size of the loop and bend one loop back, or one end back, so that I have a loop at the top as well as the loop at the bottom. This loop is what my ear wire is going to go through right here. So I'm just adjusting the size of both of these loops. And now I'm going to use my crimper and crimp this right there. I can snip off my excess wire from there and from there. There you go. And then I'll do the same thing with this one. I'll just need to be sure when I do it that I make sure I do those same size loops so that it matches. And I'll do that after I finish filming. That's my earring for project number 1. I've got my beads and ear wire so that I can make that second one off camera. And then let's make our earring for project number 2. Oh, looks like I've got an extra one of those. Alright, so for this I've got a ball head pin. Then I'm going to take one of these Montana Blue rondelles. And then a spacer, a dot, one of these bead caps upside down, and we're only going to put one of the bead caps on the earring. I'm going to leave it there, kind of like holding a bead of water in the cup of a flower or something like that. So now that I've got that strung on my head pin, I can, this is a pretty strong head pin, so it's going to hold a simple loop a lot better than maybe a weaker wired head pin. So I'm going to be turning this into a simple loop. I bent over the top of my wire just with my finger. You can use pliers to make that bend as well, and sometimes you'll get a sharper bend if you do that. I like to measure 1 centimeter away from the bead. I know from experience that this part of my finger will measure to that length. That is exactly 1 centimeter. This is a 1 centimeter thing right there. So I'm going to snip off all but that 1 centimeter. It's also 1/4 of an inch. And then use my round nose pliers. Start at the tip and roll back. And if the part of the pliers was too big for that, it doesn't go all the way, just scooch down to a smaller section of your pliers. And then you can close that up and have yourself a nice wrapped loop. Or sorry, simple loop, not wrapped loop. And then you can just attach your ear wire to that loop. So it's just a nice stacked bead dangle earring. Pretty simple, but it'll go really well with the other things that we've made. So I will be doing the second earrings off screen. Let's move on to rings. What was I doing with the ring? That's what that was. Okay. So for the rings, I am going to be using the 20 gauge wire again. I have, just going to do a single bead for each of these. Pretty simple single bead wire wrapped rings. There it is. I was looking for this. This is my ring mandrel. You don't have to use a ring mandrel. If you've got something that is, approximate size of a ring that fits you, you can use that. Just try those rings on until you find something like that like a cylinder that you can use, or get a ring mandrel, one or the other. But you can just try on ones that fit you until you find a tube or something. Check your makeup drawer if you've got that, because you can get a decent little cylinder that things will fit onto, that sort of thing. So I've got my ring mandrel and I've got my 20 gauge craft wire. I'm going to pull off about 12 inches of wire from the spool, and before I cut it, I'm just straightening it out and warming it up by running it through my fingers. There we go. Alright, so now I've got my wire. I want to find the middle of it, but not like fold it in half and half. Just bring these ends together and make note of that middle bit. Maybe put a little bit of a dent right there in that. I'm going to put my one bead on till it's sitting right there in the middle. And now that I've got my one bead, I'm going to start bending the wire down, like so it's sort of perpendicular, or like it's hanging from a swing or something. I don't need to make any bends in this wire right now. I just wanted this wire to bend right next to the bead, like that. So I could turn on that if it wanted to. And I'm going to take my pliers and about on the same level of where this bead is, that's where I'm going to grasp this wire. And I'm holding onto the bead and the wire between my fingers. And I'm just giving this little twist and a push in so that this wire will lay against the bead. I'm not pushing hard. I'm just doing a little bit of a bend just to get that wire right there. That lower part of the pliers is about the same height up as the top of that bead. And then just do a little push in and a twist like that so that it's rounded around the bead. Then we've got both of these ends coming off and away. Let's get ourselves a bit of a better bend away from there. And now I'm going to put this on a ring mandrel. I've got my thumb here next to the wire. I'm going to wrap around in one direction and then around in the other direction. Bring both of these wraps all the way around, and you see how that's sticking up from there? I'm going to want to wrap around this using these wires. So yeah, actually that's about right. So they're going in opposite directions. I'm just going to go one at a time as they stack around each other. Go up. Till it covers the part of the wire that's coming out of the bead. There we go. Going to snip that there. Snip this here. Push it in with my thumb a little bit. There we go. Right there. Alright. And now I'm going to go grab a nylon gel hammer and just hammer this bit here. That's the band and I want it to stay round. Go. That is our ring for set number 2. And for set number 3, I think I want to do the same kind of ring, but I'm going to use one of these purple metallic beads. Like that. It's a little bit smaller than the other one, but it should work just as well to do it like that. So once more, we find the center, but not too much. Put the bead on. Oh, I don't think this bead likes being on 20 gauge wire, unless that wire is nice and straight. All right, pressing with my fingers. Let's get that bent in and away. Same thing on this side. Bent in and away. I'm doing exactly the same thing as I did for the first one. These will go up a little bit messier because I'm crossing them over each other a little bit too. There we go. Not pretty. All right. So there we have our second ring. Let's bring out all of the pieces for a final look. And again, I'll make these second earrings afterwards. So we have our earrings, our ring, and bracelet, and a necklace, all made from the Bargain Bead Box, except for the addition of a couple of rondelles and this ring and the spacers. And so, you know, it's kind of a merging, I guess, of the two. And once more, there will be a second earring shortly. And then we've got our necklace and our bracelet with our first bundle. And I used everything from the bundle, the companion bundle, except for this focal, which came from the Bargain Bead Box. So another fun merging of the two. And again, there will be a second earring for that, and then I've got my ring to go with it. And there you go, we have 2 full sets from the Bargain Bead Box for February 2025 and the first companion bundle from Bead Box Bargains. Once more, links will be in the description to my unboxings, to Bargain Bead Box and Bead Box Bargains, if you would like to check them out. Until next time, happy beading.